let me say that I'm very, very honored to be here. I go all the way back to Columbia in late 1963, early 1964. There was a training session here during the Goldwater campaign. And I got on a bus, I was a student at Emory, and I came over here and I spent a day in a training session in Columbia back in that period. So my ties here go, is this on or off?
Did you hit a switch?
I hit a switch, open it. See, not this, is it back on or? No. Very strange.
All right, this is going to cost you. Let's try it.
Okay.
Hello?
No.
Now it's working.
I like that high technology stuff. As Jim and Mark, I'm a big believer in high technology. That's quite impressive. I have a lot of ties here. Roger Milliken was a tremendous mentor in the 1980s, and in fact, we still use a quote. Roger came to a meeting one time. We were trying to figure out how to get to be a majority, and I took the project on in 78, and we failed in 80, 82, 84, 86, 88, 90, 92, and he finally won in 94. And at one point late in the 80s, he came to a meeting in the Mayflower Hotel, and he said, you know, doing more of what you're already doing and expecting a different outcome is a sign of insanity, which is a quote from Einstein. I thought he was really smart, but it turned out to be a quote from Einstein. But I never forgotten, and it's now one of the 4 standard quotes we use at the Center for Health Transformation. And then Roger was very kind and invited me to come to Callaway Gardens one year for their annual retreat where they spent 3 days looking at quality and thinking about quality, and it enormously helped my understanding of how to design a Demint style approach or a Toyota production system approach, or for that matter, a Milliken system approach. So I have a lot of ties here. Mark has been a great friend, I think has been a great reform governor, and has shown enormous courage. And Jim not only has shown a lot of courage, but last year, when we had our very first Solutions Day, and we were trying to get American solutions off the ground, it was a brand new idea and had no natural momentum. He took on the challenge here in South Carolina, and he really helped us with it. And so I felt a real personal obligation to come down today because he has courage, he's intelligent, he's articulate, and he's willing to reach out to try to build a movement. He understands that if you're really going to change this place, you've got to have a lot of people engaged, and you have to have a lot of ideas, and you have to keep moving forward, and you have to have cheerful persistence. You have to understand this is hard. Governing a free people and getting them to voluntarily understand what they have to do at a time of dramatic change is very hard work. I would argue it is harder than anything humans do except fight a civil war. That is much harder than business, much harder than regular war. That the process of reaching out, because you're dealing with so many people, so many egos, and so many passions, and so many interests. And so it takes enormous commitment, and he has proven in the Senate again and again that he is part of a very core group that I would certainly look to consistently to be committed to philosophy, to be prepared to stand up to their own party's leadership, and to do what they thought was right for America without regard to partisan concern, which I think is the heart of being a good senator. So I'm just thrilled to have a chance to come down and be with you. Let me just say a couple of big things, then if it's all right, I'm going to take questions for a minute or two, if that's okay. First of all, the reason we founded American Solutions is I believe if we're going to compete successfully with China and India, and if my grandchildren who are 9 and 7 are going to live in the most successful country in the world, we have to confront the level of change that requires. And I think that means you got to rethink litigation, regulation, taxation, education, health, energy, and infrastructure. Now that is a tall load, but I think if you look realistically, if you just do a sound business analysis and say, over the next 30 years, if we are serious about remaining the most productive country in the world, what's it going to take? I think it's that fundamental change. In order to get that fundamental change, I think you've got to have an effort which reaches beyond the 2 parties. I don't think it can just be Republican, because you'll never get that scale of change if it's one side. And I think it's got to be an effort which is aimed at all 513,000 elected officials, not just at the Congress or the presidency. And it turns out there are literally 513,000 elected officials in the United States, which means you've got to do a lot of it on the internet, because you'll never be able to reach out in the normal bureaucracy to reach 513,000 elected officers. So we've created American Solutions. We've opened an office in Silicon Valley. We have our second annual Solutions Day this Saturday. It's going to focus on the economy, energy, education, and health. And we're going to continue developing a new generation of ideas. With Jim's help, I think we had a very successful run with Drill Here, Drill Now, Pay Less as a petition drive, because when we started in mid-May, the Senate was drifting towards passing the Boxer-Warner-Lieberman bill that would raise energy prices and make energy more expensive. And within about 3 weeks, McCain had shifted on drilling, and the governor of Florida had shifted on drilling, and all of a sudden people were in a totally different space. And I think you just got a phone call saying that it looks like the Democrats may not have the moratorium on drilling in the continuing resolution that they apparently announced that in the last hour, called literally this week, called Drill Here, Drill Now, Pay Less. But it actually looks at all energy. It looks at nuclear, which is a very big thing here in South Carolina. It looks at wind and it's solar. It looks at clean coal, natural gas, hydrogen, hydropower, conservation, and really makes the argument that the United States, and this is really what's remarkable about our current mess, the United States has more total energy than any other country on the planet. We have 27% of the world's coal, which is why we have more than Russia. We have 3 times the Saudi Arabian supply of oil in oil shale in the Rocky Mountains. We are an enormously great potential, totally messed up by our politics. And it's truly one of the most interesting self-inflicted problems I've ever seen. And so we both have done a book, Drill Here, Drill Now, Pay Less, which is doing very well. And we have a movie that comes out on Saturday that's part of our Solutions Day. If you're interested, you can go to AmericanSolutions.com. Solutions Day will be at the Cobb County Gallery in Atlanta. It will also be on the internet. It will be on Dish Television and on DirecTV that day. So we'll have a pretty wide reach. We had over 100,000 people participate last year. And we have a movie called We Have the Power, which actually takes you around and shows you all the different possibilities. Now, I want to focus in on this week's big story, and we'll be very direct for a minute or two. I think this is really stupid. I mean, I think the idea that the Secretary of the Treasury, having spent 2 years not figuring this out, had the gall to come to the Congress and say, give me $700 billion with no congressional oversight and no judicial review, is a sign that he is so out of touch with reality that it's truly dangerous. This is not Russia. He's not Putin. This is a very serious problem, because the president's advice that he's getting, his chief of staff is from Goldman Sachs, and his treasurer is from Goldman Sachs. And they're both walking in with a terrific Wall Street version. And let me tell you, and I believe this unequivocally, and I would debate Paulson anywhere in this country, they intend to overpay for the paper. So this is, I mean, I've now seen 3 different reports on this. I believe it is absolutely true. And the reason is they think if they refund these badly run institutions, they will recapitalize quicker, which is certainly true. But you have to ask yourself, why is it if you're a local bank and you're not in any trouble at all, you're not going to get any help, but your idiotic competitor who got themselves in deep trouble is now going to get your tax money to make a profit? I mean, I think this is an absolutely scandalous proposal. And the more I've learned about it in the last 5 days, the angrier I've gotten, the more disgusted I am with the administration. And the idea that the president would come with this, if this was a left-wing Democratic idea, I'd at least know how to respond. But I think this has been a total abandonment of everything that Republicans believe. And I'm going to do everything I can. I'm doing everything I can to beat it. But let me go a stage further. I think there are a lot of problems. I think housing is a problem, because we tried to talk people into buying houses they couldn't afford, and then we tried to figure out clever ways to paper over their purchase, so that we ended up creating derivatives that were stupid, and then we lied about what was in the derivative, and now it turns out that it's all a mess, so that's a problem. I think there are a number of Wall Street high flyers who got themselves in trouble. That's a problem. I think the fact that we're sending $700 billion a year overseas for energy, so we now have foreigners come back with our own energy money to buy our companies, that's a problem. And I think the fact that we have an increasingly anti-business, pro-litigation